Is Gaza visiting the United States of America via Los Angeles? Or is it a milder version of Ukraine Russia standoff? To those who think that these analogies are extremely far fetched, a particular word of welcome, even as I welcome everybody else. Los Angeles is in turmoil, that everybody knows. The National Guards are deployed, and more National Guards are being rushed. There is talk of the deployment of the army. There is massive unrest on the road. There is protest, there is destruction of property. There is bad blood between the administration of Los Angeles and the federal government led by the uh, inimitable Donald J. Trump, the president, who threatens to take action against the mayor, and the mayor threatens to sue the federal government. The whole situation is in a total mess. What are we to make of this? When I think of this, when I ask myself this question, I'm reminded of a few words that I remember to have read as part of an introductory essay that the great famous French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre, Sartre, wrote um, to the somewhat famous book by Frantz Fanon, titled The Wretched of the Earth. It has a background of what happened in Algeria, the struggle of the Algerian people for freedom, etc., and the utter degradation that the people of Algeria suffered on account of their colonization by France, so on and so forth. What did Jean-Paul Sartre write? He said, not long ago, France was the name of a country. Today, France is the name of a disease. Today, France is the name of a disease. Perhaps the situation of the United States of America is not far different from this. We have almost come to the point where we have begun to wonder whether the United States of America is the name of a country or the name of a disease. And the foremost infection causing this disease, the microbe causing this disease, is a gentleman by the name Donald J. Trump. And I remember seeing a video recently in which the former President Obama is addressing a university gathering in which he says, if I or any of my predecessors had done anything of what President Trump, the present incumbent, is doing, there would have been no end to our troubles. Now, in his own characteristic fashion, Obama is urging the young people of the country, especially the intelligentsia in the country, to realize that America as a nation is shifting from its very foundations. The very basis on which the greatness of America as a nation rested is now being dismantled, deliberately dismantled. And unfortunately, Americans, to the extent that they have been rendered partisan and therefore incapable of knowing the truth and recognizing the ominous reality, go along as though that's a normal and necessary thing to do, and they even take pride in it. Not everyone, but the committed vote bank of Donald J. Trump. And we must really make sense of this, because what happens to America happens to the whole world. Unfortunately, that is the kind of world order that has been created, the America-centric world order. And thank God that there are evident signs that this world order is now collapsing under its own weight, and something completely different is in the offing. And what we are perhaps witnessing at the present time is the birth pang of that alternate scheme of things for mankind. As yet, we do not know the exact shape of the things to come, but we are not far away, I believe, from that particular state. Whether the alternative that's shaping itself in the womb of time would be a great improvement on the system that we are going to leave behind, I do not know. Because ultimately, I believe that everything depends on human nature. Then, unless and until human nature is reformed and rendered more noble and godlike, mere change in system will not offer us any relief. What we need is not merely a change in system, but basically a change in human nature. And all spiritual enterprises, as we know, are directed towards bringing about a change, a reformation, a regeneration, if you like, of human nature. Now, what is the basic disease that has caught hold of America and is currently afflicting that nation? That's the only subject, the only point I want to deal with in this video. I do so because this particular issue of much wider significance and what we see being acted out in the United States is part of a global phenomenon. And we can also see to what extent this cancer has spread to the other parts of the global body politic. And therefore, the observation that I'm going to make, I believe, is of universal significance, and it has also an application to the Indian context. The exegetical part I will leave to you. I'll only confine myself to the reckoning of a particular problem and offering a particular viewpoint, a context to that. What indeed was the greatness of America? We all know that in one sense, America is a myth. What was America was completely destroyed. Native Americans were eliminated. And unfortunately, religion played a big role in it, but that's not my main subject. But I don't want to overlook that reality either. America fundamentally is a land of immigrants. It is not a land of the natives. It once was a land of natives, but unfortunately in 1492, Columbus committed a big mistake. And I think Columbus owes the world a huge apology. And I don't think he can apologize enough. It was by his mistake that America was discovered. But for that discovery, perhaps we would not have been in the present plight. Well, I'm at the moment speaking with tongue in cheek, but doing so quite deliberately and consciously. We know that America was founded by the Pilgrim Fathers, those who faced religious persecution in England, boarded a small ship called Mayflower and reached the shores of the United States of America. And after that, waves after waves after waves of immigration into America and colonization. The British colonizing much of it, the French also having a cut of the cake. And therefore, the names that today sound French were the regions where the French had their colonies. The rest, of course, was controlled by England. In those days, not the UK, but England. It was because the French had its colony in certain parts in the United States that Napoleon, after he lost the Waterloo Battle, realizing that the tide of history had turned against him, wanted to escape towards America and find a quiet place of residence there to spend the rest of his life there. And the English anticipated this, and therefore they stationed their ships appropriately forestalling the escape of Napoleon to America. And then, of course, Napoleon was caught and then he was exiled to St. Helena, and the rest is history. Now, the fundamental point I want to make is that America is a land of immigrants, and therefore, the very essence of America is the commingling of differences. Not all Europeans are of the same mold. Europe is a paint box of differences. And it's not only from Europe that people found refuge in America. People from all parts of the world, especially the more talented, more promising people from all over the country, came, found their welcome in the United States, which was a land of opportunities. They blossomed, and the fruits of their achievements together constituted the wealth and greatness of America. So, America has been appropriately named a salad bowl of races, cultures, and peoples. So, homogeneity was not the strength or secret of America. It was exactly the opposite. Diversity and the self confidence, the inner strength, the large heartedness of America to tolerate, not only to tolerate differences, but to realize that differences constitute the irreplaceable source of enrichment. And that the greatness of a nation is not revealed by its allergy to differences, but by its creative ability to turn differences to one's own advantage. This is something that those who really love India must take note of, because we are committing the same mistake that the Americans are committing. Allergy to differences is contrary to the law of nature, law of life, law of history. And this is a road to self destruction, and we'll only end up by crippling ourselves, even though for the time being it may seem a heady and fast rewarding political gimmick. The consequences are disastrous, and America is a good case study in this regard. Now, Trump, of course, paved the road to his presidency with the promise that he would take stringent action against aliens, criminals, and he has his own descriptions. He says that the mental asylums and the jails of the world offloaded all their criminals and madmen into the United States. There may be an element of truth, but certainly it's a gross exaggeration. You ask the farmer in the United States, you ask the industrialists in the United States, who are the workers that produce the wealth of America? These are the immigrants. If all the alien immigrants, so-called illegal immigrants, are driven out of America, the American agricultural sector will collapse. The cost of production will go much higher. And in the long run, America will lose out to China. It's already losing out, and it will lose out much faster and far more dramatically if all the so-called alien illegal immigrants are driven out of America. As anyone who has a modicum of sense realizes, the white American cannot replace the hardworking South Americans, the Chinese, the Asians, the Africans. So, the very foundation of the United States and the very secret of its achievement, its greatness, is genius, including the discovery, if you like, of the atom bomb. Everything was on account of the so-called immigrants. You consider any leading thinker, leading financial expert, leading scientist. Why? Leading athlete, etc., etc. They're not the so-called native white man. I said at the outset that this concept of the native white man is bogus to the core. The white man is as much of an immigrant as any other. There may be a time difference. On the time scale, the white man may have preceded the others. Like in India, the very same debate, did the Aryans come into India from the Persian region, or are they the native people? Did the Aryans colonize India? So on and so forth. If you read Savarkar's book, Hindutva, he begins with the assumption that the Aryans are immigrants into India. But if today you say to any of the camp followers of the Sangh Parivar that the Aryans were immigrants, you're likely to be slapped on your face. So ideas, assumptions, theories keep changing. But even Americans will grant that they were not native in the good sense of the term, in the true sense of the term, to the American soil. They were also immigrants. And ironically, it is immigrants of a certain vintage who are now showcasing with great pride their allergy to immigrants of a later time. I was an immigrant 50 years ago, so I'm all right. You are an immigrant who came in only 20 years ago, therefore you are untouchable. I will kick you out. This is the morality. And for some strange historical reason, it's the immigrant who cannot tolerate another immigrant. It's the immigrant who thinks that coming in of other immigrants is a great problem for himself. It is very much like in the Indian context, a member of the Dalit community feels greatly upset when a fellow Dalit rises to the level of, shall we say, in social recognition, in intellectual achievement, in political position, to a situation equal to that of a Brahmin. This is part of the strange streak in human nature. So, one thing is very clear to me, and that is whatever is today happening in Los Angeles, the turmoil, the upheaval, the mayhem that is being showcased in Los Angeles signals the inevitable and impending downfall of the United States of America. And the micro version of it, or the version of it played out on a smaller scale, is a standoff between Trump and Elon Musk. The two were bosom pals. One could not live without the other. One could not be out of sight with the other for about 3-4 months. Well, even more than that. It was Musk who invested his millions into helping Trump win the elections. And therefore, there is some truth in Elon Musk's claim that Trump became the president of the United States largely due to him. So that claim cannot be discounted. But look at the bad blood between the two. This denotes an extreme state of pathology. The American mind seems to be sick. Soon after the results of the November 2024 elections to the office of the President of the United States was announced, there was an article, I think, in New York Times, in which the author argued that Trump merely reveals the sickness that has overtaken America. Trump is our date with truth as far as America is concerned. Trump is a revelation of what America has indeed become. You think of the conduct of the President of the United States. And I remember as a young man thinking of the office of the President of the United States, particularly from the time the great standoff between the United States and USSR, the Cuban crisis, President Kennedy. I really don't have much memory, living memory of the presidents before. I may have read about some of them, but my living memory actually begins with John F. Kennedy. And I have to say that I have learned several of his speeches by heart. I was very fond of him. So from that time onward, I came to associate great dignity and therefore feel great respect for the presidents of the United States of America. That continued right down to President Obama. But with Biden onwards, unfortunately, my respect began to nosedive because I believe, I felt then, and I feel with equal force now, he was not a leader. It was a mistake that he became the President of the United States. He did not have the ability to lead that country for whatever reasons. Let's not go into an anatomy of this now. Now, that process of the decline in estimation of the office of the most powerful office in the world has accelerated with disturbing speed with Donald J. Trump. Now, you can understand a man in terms of the words that he's in love with. President Trump is in love with only two words: tariff and I. Tariff and I. Then nothing else. Open his mouth, it's tariff. How did he, according to him, how did he settle the conflict, the confrontation between India and Pakistan? I told both of them, look here, I'll do trade with you. Let's do trade. Let's do some beautiful trade. Don't fight. If you stop fighting, I'll do beautiful trade with you. That's the man. That's the man. Such a person is bound to be insensitive to the quintessentially human. And you see that writ large over the way he has treated his guests, mind you, his guests in the White House, starting with President Zelensky. Can you ever imagine inviting somebody as your guest and then in front of the assembled global media, insulting and humiliating him? In fact, Trump did not have the spiritual or intellectual or cultural sensitivity to realize that by so insulting Zelensky, he was actually heaping insult upon himself. And he repeated the same nonsense, boorish nonsense, with the president of South Africa. And the president of South Africa handled it quite well. He passed a snide remark which would have caused the skin, the hide of a man with somewhat greater sensitivity than Trump to fall off. He said, I'm sorry, I don't have an aircraft to give to you. If I had an aircraft to give to you, you would have treated me with great respect. You would have treated me with adoration as you do the Arab leaders who butter your ego, butter your hands and massage your ego. You can't possibly say a more insulting, satirical thing than that. But it touched Donald Trump nowhere, not even the hardest part of his anatomy. And then came the turn of the German president, Friedrich Merz. The less said about it, the better. And the German president, in his own very, very sophisticated, subtle manner, exposed the historical ignorance of Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not understand D-Day. And then finally, think of what he said about the Ukraine-Russia war. He said, oh, I told the president in my telephonic conversation with him that when two children fight, sometimes it is better to allow them to go on fighting for some more time. When they get tired, we'll intervene and say, now, enough, go back to your places. Enough of fighting. And President Zelensky gave the best imaginable answer. And he did so beautifully. Hats off to him. I recommend you to see the video in which President Zelensky is asked a question, asked to respond to this rather boorish, insensitive, subhuman statement by the President of the United States. He says, nobody living at a distance knows what it means to be in the plight of the Ukrainians. And then he cites the example of a father who lost 3 of his sons and his wife in a Russian attack, who says, look, I survived, but when I sleep, I just feel for my children. Where are they? Where are they? When I get up in the morning, I walk around looking for my children. Where are they? Where are they? That's what war is doing to the Ukrainians. And to Trump, it's a game. It's a small local quarrel between two urchins. I'll let them fight for some more time. The very same man says the reason why he wants to intervene and cause peace to prevail between Ukraine and Russia is that he says, my heart breaks that every week 5,000 Russians and maybe an equal number of Ukrainians are being ground into mincemeat in the meat grinder called this war. He says, oh, I want to end it. I want to create peace. Why? I can't think of so many Russians dying. I can't think of so many Ukrainians dying. At the same time, he says, oh, it's like two, ill-behaved boys fighting. There's no problem. Nothing is happening. That is the man for you. He is the President of the United States of America. Nothing worse can be said about America and Americans. Trump showcases what America has become to the rest of the world. My dear friends, I predict today, given this reality, given the fact that this is the extent to which America as a nation has declined, degenerated, the downfall of America is a historical necessity. It will happen a lot quicker than you and I imagine, not because of anything else, but because of my ardent conviction based on what little sense of history I have, that ultimately the future of a country, the destiny of a country, is determined not by the might of its army or by the size of its GDP, is determined by the quality of its people. America has lost out. And I say this not because I gloat over the decline and degradation of America. I say this as a warning to the global community, no matter to which country you belong. I say this also addressing my fellow countrymen in the wonderful country called India. If the quality of the people is undermined, a country can have no future. No one who loves the country would want to degrade even a single member of that body politic. After all, the wealth of a nation is a sum total, the aggregation of the personality wealth of every member of that country. So, please watch carefully the ongoings in the United States of America. What's being played out in the streets of Los Angeles is not merely an internal strife. It is the eruption of a very serious internal illness that has spread far and wide and deep into the body politic of America. And therefore, it is a far greater consequence than is perhaps realized at the present time. I wish the Americans well. America played a very, very important role in history. Americans earned for themselves the recognition that they are the most generous people under the sun. America stood by various people groups, etc. But of course, America did it as part of its foreign policy, which was always driven by crass selfishness, which is the other side of the picture. But American selfishness did mean some relief to poor people, famished people in various parts of the world. That is something I cannot forget. But all that is now a thing of the past. It has vanished like a pageantry in the clouds. Today, America has entered a stage where, as Jean-Paul Sartre would say, we are beginning to wonder where America is the name of a country or it is the name of a disease. God save America. Jai Hind.